The first scenario I read and caught my attention was about a 16-year-old girl. She was interrogated 2 days after her infant son had been suffocated. She had just experienced giving birth and losing her child at not only a very young age, but both happened in a very short period of time. I am a mom, so I can only imagine the pain she must have been in. She pleaded innocent at the beginning of her interrogation. The police didn't even have evidence that someone had actually killed the baby. They questioned her for hours, implying she had been the one to kill the baby, trying to break her down. They lied to her and told her that they were just going to help her, and if she confessed, they would charge her as a juvenile, making her punishment smaller or promising she wouldn't even have one. They had no intention of helping her at all. They finally broke her and she confessed to killing the baby. They arrested her immediately and charged her as an adult. She was in jail for 3 years before her charges were dropped. A judge dropped her charges for a lack of evidence, came to the conclusion her confession had been obtained illegally. The second scenario was of a 17-year-old boy named Rubio. He was convicted for murder and sentenced to 60 years. His lawyers argued on appeal that he had been played into making the statement that convicted him. The officer gave Rubio legal advice: if you went out there and this was something that happened, spur of the moment, you didn't expect the guy to come at you, things got heated, whatever happened, happened, and this is the only way it ended up, this is the time to make it right. It's not too late, okay? They lied to him, pretending he would be convicted of a serious crime if he had an encounter on the spur of the moment. The sooner you get it over with, the sooner you go home. These statements by the officers convinced Rubio he could escape a serious crime if he confessed. He shot someone without planning to, and would make it right and get on with his life if he confessed. After he was convicted to 60 years in prison, the Illinois court concluded the officers had convinced Rubio of anything, and they did not break any promises made to Rubio. The book didn't state whether Rubio was innocent or guilty. I tried looking up the case online, but I had no luck. Just to imagine he could have been convicted for a crime he didn't commit is honestly depressing to me. What the author advises people to do when speaking to police is two simple things. Even if you think the officer is being unfair, you cannot refuse to cooperate with the following: your name and whether you have a reason for your presence or conduct at the moment. Do not tell them where you were before or who you were with. I personally found this book really helpful. I always thought they had the right to ask us whatever questions they wanted, and we were forced to answer. I know about pleading the fifth, but I always thought pleading the fifth will only make you look guilty. I have never had a bad encounter with an officer or been arrested. Recently, I watched a show based on a true story on Netflix called When They See Us. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have heard about it. They were known as the Central Park Five back in 1989. They were all underage African-American boys. The story is about a group of around 20 teenagers throwing rocks at cabs and messing around in Central Park. They were all detained overnight and were waiting for their parents to pick them up in the morning. During the same time, there was an 18-year-old banker going for a jog near where the boys were hanging out. They found her beaten and raped, left for dead. When they found her, they immediately assumed the young men were guilty of the rape. Trisha, the rape victim, had been beaten and had no recognition of what had happened to her, so she couldn't testify. She had no memory of the attack. They were interrogated without her parent present. Race definitely played a big role in this case. In one of the cases, even the boy's dad was helping the officer convince his son to testify whatever the officer was telling him to say to not make things worse. They recorded their confession, blaming each other of the rape. They received the maximum sentence for boys of their age. 4 of them were in jail for 7 years, and the 5th man was served as an adult and spent 13 years in jail. In 2002, while they were serving their time, Matias Reyes confessed to being the attacker and the assault runner of Central Park. He provided details only the perpetrator of the crime would know, and the DNA testing found he was a match for the rape. On their release, the 5 filed a lawsuit against New York City and received a settlement of $41 million.